"Look, the lost foreigner again." The phrase sliced through the silence like a blade, followed by laughter echoing down the marble hallway. Layla Carter lowered her head and wiped up the coffee that had been spilled on purpose, swallowing her pain in silence. Little did they know, that same humiliated woman was about to overhear something that would change everything. And no one, absolutely no one, saw what was coming. Subscribe to the channel and get ready for a story where humiliation becomes destiny, and destiny turns into an unbelievable twist. They say New York City never sleeps. But when the lights of the luxurious Manhattan corporate tower went out, that's when Layla Carter's story truly began. When the floors grew silent and the sound of high heels faded away, the soft swish of a mop and the creak of a cleaning bucket became the rhythm of her night. No one noticed her, and maybe that was the point. She moved quietly between glass walls and marble floors, almost blending in with the furniture. Her blue uniform, wrinkled from long hours of work, was invisible to the hurried eyes of executives. But behind that simple apron hid a secret few would ever guess. Layla spoke 5 languages fluently, including Arabic, which she had learned as a child in the dusty alleys of Beirut, while sirens echoed between the mountains. The war had taken everything from her, except her dignity. Her father, a language teacher, used to say, "Words are bridges, my daughter. Those who master them can cross any border." That sentence followed her like a whisper amid the hum of cleaning machines. In that building, the borders were different. The upper floors, untouchable. The golden badges of the executives were like passports to another world, while hers, blue and missing her full name, kept her grounded on the lower levels. Still, Layla smiled. Not out of submission, but because she knew that other people's bitterness couldn't stain the purity of someone who does the right thing, even in silence. During the day, she watched luxury cars pull up at the front door, saw the shine of Italian suits and smelled the trail of expensive perfume that floated through the air. And she thought, these people really believe the world revolves only around money. They had no idea that beneath those marble floors lay stories of courage swept away like dust. Between one hallway and another, Layla found herself, remembering that even the humble carry invisible riches, like gratitude and faith. Sometimes she stopped by the glass windows and saw her reflection blend with the city lights. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to dream, to be seen not for her appearance, but for her worth. Some executives laughed whenever she passed by. They mocked her Lebanese accent, the guttural way her words sounded. She should be serving coffee in some cheap hotel, she once overheard. Layla simply lowered her eyes. Every laugh felt like a needle, but she didn't react. Silence, to her, was a shield. She had learned that in places where arrogance speaks loudly, humility becomes a form of resistance. Still, deep inside, there was a quiet ache, the pain of being treated as if hard work meant nothing. And soon, without knowing it, everyone there would learn a lesson that would cost them dearly. Layla arrived before dawn, when the air was still cold and empty taxis crossed the avenues. With trembling hands, she adjusted the scarf covering her hair and took a deep breath. The building reflected the sunrise like a golden mirror, but she knew that inside, light didn't always find a place to shine. People lived in a rush, chasing goals, contracts, meetings. And she just cleaned what was left behind. But there was one thing no one could erase: the way she did everything with care, almost like an artist tending to her own creation. Because to Layla, even the coldest floor deserved to shine. Sometimes she overheard fragments of conversations in the hallways, talks about corporate mergers, million-dollar bonuses, trips to Dubai. Words that belonged to a financial language she understood but was never part of. Even so, Layla never felt smaller. She knew a person's worth isn't measured by salary, but by the honesty with which they face each day. While many chased status, she chased purpose. Maybe that was naivete, or maybe it was wisdom too rare for such a superficial world. The truth was, behind that uniform, there was more intelligence and courage than anyone in that building could imagine. Deep down, Layla observed everything with a calm that unsettled people. She knew the names of the employees who never greeted her, the rhythm of each manager's footsteps, even the perfume the CEO wore when he was nervous. It was as if the entire building spoke to her in subtle codes, and she learned them all. Maybe that's what made her different, her ability to see what no one else saw, to hear what no one else heard. And although she lived surrounded by humiliation disguised as professionalism, she never let that define her. The world saw her as a cleaning lady. But without realizing it, Layla was preparing to become the bridge between two worlds. Her co-workers secretly admired her. "She never complains," said Maria, another cleaning lady. "Even when they make fun of her, she keeps going." Layla would simply smile and say, "We don't need to prove anything to those who don't understand the value of silence." It was a simple philosophy, but a deep one. She had learned that true strength is silent, like the wind that sweeps through a city unnoticed, yet changes everything around it. And in the middle of her monotonous routine, a strange feeling began to grow inside her. Something was about to happen. Something that would completely change the way everyone saw her. Destiny, they say, has a refined sense of humor. Sometimes it places the humble before the powerful, not to humiliate them, but to prove that human worth can't be bought. Without realizing it, Layla was walking straight into the heart of a story that would test her faith and courage. As she pushed her cleaning cart down the main hallway, the soft echo of the wheels blended with a low murmur of voices nearby. Words in Arabic, coming from somewhere she couldn't quite place. Her brow furrowed. It had been years since she'd heard that language outside her home. But her heart recognized it. And in that instant, in the silence of the 24th floor, something shifted. Layla froze, the rag still in her hands, and looked around as if the air itself had grown heavier. She didn't know it yet, but that was the first thread in a web that would take her from invisibility to the front page of the news. The voices faded, but their words burned into her mind. And without realizing it, the woman everyone ignored had just become the key to a secret worth millions, one that could bring the entire company crashing down. That night, the building felt even emptier. The hallway lights flickered against the metal and glass, and the wind outside pressed softly against the windows, filling the place with a strange melancholy. Layla was cleaning the meeting room, wiping the table with slow, almost meditative movements. The silence was comforting, until laughter broke through it. Two managers, wearing immaculate suits and holding coffee cups, appeared at the door. "Look, the lost foreigner again," one mocked. The other laughed loudly, that kind of laugh that mixes boredom with disdain. Layla kept cleaning as if she hadn't heard, but her chest tightened. She knew reacting was useless, and once again, dignity hid behind silence. One of them stepped closer, scanning her from head to toe with the kind of look that measures a person's worth by the fabric of their clothes. "You understand what we're saying, don't you?" he taunted, assuming she didn't. Layla nodded slightly without lifting her eyes. It was better to swallow the insult than to feed their cruelty. But when he deliberately spilled hot coffee on the freshly cleaned floor, smiling sarcastically, something inside her broke, not out of anger, but exhaustion. The dark liquid spread between the tiles, and kneeling down, she wiped it away quietly, as if picking up pieces of herself. "Careful not to burn yourself, sweetheart," the other said with a smirk. Layla took a deep breath. That kind of humiliation wasn't new. They had mistaken her for an illegal immigrant before, ignored her when she tried to explain something, treated her as if she were part of the floor she cleaned. But something about that night was different. As she wiped the floor, she remembered her father's words, about bridges, about the power of language. She thought about how knowledge was a kind of wealth no one could steal. And right there, kneeling before arrogance, she made herself a promise, that she would never again let the contempt of others stain her faith in who she was. When she finished cleaning, she quietly stepped out of the room. The hallway outside was empty, but her heart wasn't. Inside, she carried a mix of sadness and strength, the kind that comes from knowing that pain, too, can be a form of learning. Her uniform clung to her body, sweat mixed with tears, yet her steps remained steady. She knew the world was unfair to the humble, but she also knew that, every now and then, fate likes to flip the script. The elevator descended slowly, and in the mirrored doors, Layla saw a tired woman staring back at her, weary, but with a determined gaze. Outside, the night swallowed the sound of cars and sirens. Layla walked toward the subway with that distant look of someone who had grown used to being ignored. In her hands, the worn-out gloves were like souvenirs of her daily battles, quiet but relentless. Each step echoed a question she never dared to ask out loud. How long will a person's worth be measured by appearance? The city lights flickered like irony. She lived in the heart of capitalism, surrounded by millionaires, yet none of them seemed to see what truly mattered. That night, as the train sped through the dark tunnels, Layla leaned her head against the window and closed her eyes. She remembered life back in Lebanon, her mother making tea, her father grading notebooks. The war had destroyed everything, but what remained was what still sustained her now, the dignity of someone who refuses to bow down. "God, help me not to harden my heart," she whispered. The empty train car seemed to answer with a comforting silence. The world slept, but inside her, something began to awaken, a quiet sense that life still owed her an explanation. The next morning, she returned to work as if nothing had happened. The managers passed by, chuckling and whispering something about the coffee lady. Layla just smiled, a small, calm smile, not of submission but of defiance. She knew humiliation has an expiration date when faced with dignity. Time has its own way of setting things right, even if it takes a while. And though her heart still ached, a quiet spark of hope flickered inside her chest. As she mopped the 24th floor hallway, she noticed the echo of her own footsteps. There was a strange peace in the air, maybe the calm after her inner storm, or maybe a sign that something was about to change. Because life, she knew, always saves its biggest twists for the most unexpected moments. What Layla didn't know was that the next night would place her in the center of a secret that would test everything she believed in, and would force her courage to stand face to face with power. She ran the mop one last time, turned off the lights, and walked toward the elevator. From up there, she could see the glowing city, vast, alive, and pulsing. A cruel contrast, the luxury she cleaned and the simplicity that sustained her. But there was no resentment in her eyes, only a quiet certainty that every tear held back, every insult swallowed, was building something time would one day reveal. And as the elevator doors closed, Layla didn't realize she was going down, only to rise higher than she'd ever dreamed. That night of humiliation would, ironically, become the beginning of her ascent. Because destiny, in its divine irony, chooses the invisible to teach the greatest lessons. Layla didn't know it yet, but the same language that made her the target of ridicule would soon become the key to her victory, and to a secret that would change everything. It was nearly 10 o'clock when Layla gathered the trash bags from the main hallway. The silence was so thick she could hear the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights. She was adjusting her cart when low voices caught her attention. They came from the executive meeting room, a place rarely occupied that late. Layla stopped. The voices were familiar, but the language, it froze her. Arabic. Fluent, fast, filled with expressions she hadn't heard since childhood. Her heart began to race. It was unusual to hear that language there. She stepped closer, careful not to make a sound, pressing her ear gently against the wall. What she heard sent a chill down her spine. Two men spoke urgently, unaware they were being overheard. Words slipped out in fragments. Fake contracts, transfers. American company, his name appears. Layla leaned forward, recognizing one of the voices. It belonged to one of the foreign consultants CEO Andrew Wallace had brought in that week. The other, a tall bald man, spoke quickly, listing figures and names. "Wallace will be the scapegoat," he said in Arabic. Layla covered her mouth in shock. There was no doubt, they were plotting a multimillion-dollar fraud, using the CEO's name. For a moment, she wanted to run. Instinct told her to leave, to pretend she hadn't heard a thing. But her conscience spoke louder. She knew what injustice looked like. She had grown up surrounded by it. And now, somehow, fate had placed her in the middle of another war. Not one fought with weapons, but between power and truth. Layla stayed still, absorbing every word. One of the men mentioned an offshore account and forged documents. The other laughed, saying, "No one would ever suspect two well-dressed Arabs in an American company." The words cut deep, both for their insult and for the crime behind them. When the voices faded, Layla stepped back, leaning against the wall as she tried to process what she had just heard. Her heart pounded. The air felt heavy. "What do I do now?" she whispered. The hallway was empty, lights flickering faintly. It felt as though the building itself was waiting for her decision. Tell someone? But who would believe a cleaning lady? How many times had they already doubted her over smaller things? Still, she knew silence would make her an accomplice. And in her mind, her father's voice echoed once more. "Words are bridges, my daughter. But they can also be salvation." Layla took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling hands. She went to the supply room and grabbed a sheet of paper, still stained with cleaning products. Borrowing a pen from Maria, she began writing down everything she remembered from the conversation. Names, phrases, numbers, even the tone of their voices. Then she carefully translated every line into English, with near-academic precision. When she finished, she looked at the paper and felt a familiar weight in her chest, the same fear she'd felt when she fled the war. The only difference was that this time, the enemy wore a suit and tie. On her way back, she passed the room where it had all happened. The chairs were perfectly arranged, the coffee cups untouched, as if nothing had occurred. But Layla knew that between those cold walls, a dangerous secret had been planted, and she was the only witness. "God, give me courage," she murmured. Because courage, she knew, isn't the absence of fear, it's acting even while you're shaking. She folded the note and slipped it into her pocket, feeling the paper press against her heart like a reminder. Doing what's right always requires action. The next morning, she arrived before anyone else. The windows were still reflecting the sunrise when Layla approached Andrew Wallace's office door. The hallway was empty. In silence, she slid the folded paper under the door. The soft sound it made hitting the floor echoed like thunder in her chest. She walked away quickly, avoiding eye contact with anyone, trying to hide her nerves. In the elevator, her reflection looked different, tired, but resolute. For the first time, she felt she was carrying something greater than fear, the duty to stop an injustice. Oh, ChatGPT. The following hours felt endless. Layla worked all day with her heart racing, wondering if anyone had read the note. No one said a word. The executives rushed through the halls, conversations flowed as usual, as if the world kept spinning the same. But inside her, nothing was the same anymore. Doubt gnawed at her. Had she done the right thing? Or was she just a cleaning lady meddling in something too big? Deep down, she knew that truth has its own timing, and when it comes, it shines brighter than gold. That night, as she left the building, Layla glanced back and saw the CEO's office lights still on. A shadow moved inside. Did he find the note? She wondered. The cold wind brushed against her face, yet a quiet warmth filled her chest, the peace of a clear conscience. She didn't know what the future would bring, but she could feel something big was coming, something that would put her name and her secret at the center of a story that would change lives. Somehow, she knew, the same hallways that once echoed with mocking laughter would soon hear another voice, the voice of truth, spoken by the one they least expected. The next morning, Layla arrived earlier than usual. The building still seemed half asleep, and the sunlight reflected off the glass walls as if the day itself carried an omen. While changing into her uniform, her heart thumped in her chest. She hadn't slept all night, imagining whether someone had found her letter. What if they think it was me? What if they fire me? Fear whispered in Arabic, the same language in which the crime had been planned. But above it, another voice echoed calmly. You did the right thing. And that, by itself, was a comfort. As she began cleaning the main hallway, she sensed something different. The air was tense, as if the walls themselves knew a secret. The office doors were slightly open, and executives whispered with worried faces. The CEO canceled all meetings today, she overheard one of them say. Layla's heart skipped. Wallace's name floated through the air, sharp and electric. Then, unexpectedly, a young assistant in a blue suit approached her and said, Mr. Wallace wants to see you. Now. Layla froze. Me? She asked, confused. He simply nodded. The walk to the CEO's office felt longer than ever. Every step echoed down the hallway like a drumbeat. When she entered, Wallace was sitting behind his glass desk, his expression serious. In his hands, her folded letter. "Close the door, please," he said, his tone calm but firm. Layla obeyed. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. Wallace looked up and asked, "How did you know about this?" She hesitated, swallowing hard. For a moment, she thought of lying, but his eyes left no room for it. "I overheard the conversation, sir. I understood what they were planning, and I translated it so you could understand." The CEO studied her in silence, weighing every word, every gesture. "You speak Arabic?" he asked, surprised. "Yes, sir. It's my native language." Wallace leaned back, visibly impressed. "Do you realize what this means, Layla? You might have just saved this company." His words struck like thunder. Layla felt a mix of relief and fear. "I only did what I thought was right," she murmured. Wallace shook his head slowly. "No. You did what no one else had the courage to do." He immediately called the legal department and ordered a full investigation. Within hours, the company turned into a quiet storm of movement. Computers seized, folders reviewed, accounts traced. Layla watched from afar, still in disbelief over what she had set in motion. Maria, her co-worker, looked at her in awe. "What's going on?" she whispered. Layla simply said, "The truth is coming out from the ground." And it was. With every document examined, the fraud unraveled further. Fake contracts, wire transfers, data manipulation. By the end of the day, Wallace called her back into his office. His tone was different now, respectful, almost gentle. "Layla, the evidence confirms everything. You were right. Those two men were arrested this afternoon. The FBI is taking over from here." Layla covered her face with her hands, stunned. I can't believe it." Wallace smiled faintly. "Believe it. And know this, without you, we'd all be finished." Tears welled in her eyes, but she held them back. "I just did what anyone would do, sir." "No, Layla," he said softly. "Not everyone would have listened, and fewer still would have acted." In the days that followed, the building felt transformed. People whispered as she passed, but not with mockery, with curiosity and respect. "Was it her?" some asked. "The Lebanese cleaning lady?" Layla remained quiet as always, but there was a new light in her eyes. The same blue uniform now carried a different kind of dignity, as if every stitch told a story of courage. It felt strange to be seen after so long being invisible. And for the first time, she realized the humiliation she once endured had turned into something greater, a silent lesson the world was finally beginning to learn. One rainy afternoon, Wallace called her to his office again. The room was brighter now, the windows open. "Layla," he began, "your actions mean more than you think. You didn't just save this company, you saved my reputation, too." He paused. "And I won't let that go unnoticed." Layla lowered her head, deeply moved. "Sir, I don't need anything. I already have what I need, my peace." Wallace smiled. "Even so, the world needs to hear your story. People need to understand that true heroism doesn't wear a suit." That night, Layla walked home different. She strolled through the wet streets with a quiet smile. The rain fell softly, reflecting the glow of the city, the same skyscrapers that once felt unreachable. Now, each drop that touched the ground reminded her that truth has the power to cleanse what arrogance stains. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew something within her had awakened, something that would never fade. Deep down, Layla sensed it. Justice was only beginning. And once truth begins to shine, not even luxury can outshine what comes from within. The next morning, the atmosphere in the company was entirely different. The fraud scandal had spread through the corridors like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know who had uncovered the multimillion-dollar scheme, who had dared to speak up. Wallace, the CEO, called for a company-wide meeting in the main auditorium. It was rare for him to appear in person, and the room buzzed with anticipation. Layla, quiet as ever, stood in the back, holding her badge and avoiding eye contact. Her heart pounded, as if it already knew everything was about to change for good. When Wallace stepped onto the stage, silence fell. The man known for his stern demeanor looked different, more human, more humble. "I want to tell you a story," he began. "About someone everyone sees, but few truly notice." The crowd exchanged curious glances. This company almost lost everything because of a multi-million-dollar fraud. And it was saved not by a director, nor by a manager, but by a humble woman everyone ignored. Heads turned toward the back of the room. Layla lowered her gaze. "Layla Carter," he said firmly, "please come up here." Her heart nearly stopped. Her legs trembled, but she walked. Each step was a mix of fear and gratitude. When she reached the stage, the room went still. Wallace looked around and announced, "This woman overheard a conversation in Arabic, understood the danger, and came forward. If it weren't for her, we'd be ruined today." The silence that followed was thick, until one person began to clap. Then another. And soon, the entire auditorium rose to its feet in applause. Layla, tears in her eyes, simply shook her head in disbelief, overwhelmed. When the applause faded, Wallace continued, "Layla, you are not just an exemplary employee. You're a living reminder that a person's value isn't measured by their title, but by their character." He handed her an envelope. Inside was an official letter, promotion, corporate ethics coordinator. Along with it, a financial bonus and a personal note of gratitude. Layla could barely speak. "Sir, I don't know what to say." Wallace smiled. "Don't say anything. Just keep being who you are. The world needs more people like you." The news spread quickly through the company and the media. "Cleaning lady saves corporation from international fraud," the headlines read. But what moved people most was how Layla handled it. No pride, no arrogance. She still greeted everyone with kindness, smiling softly. "I haven't changed," she'd say. "I just found my place." Her blue uniform was replaced by a simple suit, but the same light shone in her eyes. To many, she was an inspiring story. To Layla, she was living proof that God writes straight even on the dirty lines of a marble floor. The former managers, the same ones who had mocked her, could barely look her in the eye. One of them approached her awkwardly. "Layla, I'm sorry for what I did." She smiled gently. "What's done is done. What matters is what we learn from it." And she meant it. There was no resentment in her, only lessons transformed into grace. Forgiveness to her was the highest form of victory. And that morning, as she walked to her new office, she realized that the silence that once surrounded her was no longer loneliness, it was peace. In an interview with the press, Wallace summed it up perfectly. People judge what they see. And what they see is just the uniform. No one imagines what lies behind it. Those words spread across the country, inspiring thousands. Layla had become a symbol of courage, humility, and integrity. But what moved her most wasn't the applause, it was knowing she had turned humiliation into respect, and contempt into recognition. Every simple gesture once ignored now carried a new meaning: dignity. That afternoon, alone on the rooftop of the building, Layla looked out over the Manhattan skyline. The windows reflected the golden sunset, and she smiled. "Dad, you were right. The bridges we build through goodness always take us farther." A soft breeze played with her hair, and she closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't need trophies or titles. It was enough to know that her once invisible story was now inspiring others not to give up. A few days later, Maria, her coworker, came running in with tears in her eyes. "Did you see? They're talking about you on TV." Layla laughed. The irony, right? One day they laughed at me, and now they use my name to teach ethics. Maria hugged her tightly. "You deserve it, Layla. You saved the place that once ignored you." Layla hugged her back gently. "I didn't save it for them, Maria. I saved it for myself." Because we should never let the evil spoken by others change the good that lives inside us. And so, through laughter and tears, the Lebanese cleaning lady who was once the target of mockery became living proof that humility can overcome pride, and that true strength lies in staying pure, even when the world tries to stain you. Her story wasn't about revenge, but about justice, the kind that comes from the heart. Layla Carter had learned that you don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes, silence is the most powerful sound there is. And if you believe humility is still a virtue, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like Layla's remind us that, in the end, it's always goodness that wins.